Fairview Freeze 2021. Ethical Considerations of AI. The development of artificial intelligence has the potential to revolutionize everything from transportation to healthcare. However, the considerable advantages that AI promises also raises many ethical concerns. These include questions of liability, bias in programming, and lack of privacy. In addition, Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, a president of Sinovation Ventures Artificial Intelligence Institute, predicts that 40% of all jobs could be lost due to the implementation of artificial intelligence and a lack of ethics. Addressing these issues will require enacting new laws, taxes, and more ways of incorporating people into the workforce. It will also involve making sure that ethical considerations are embodied in the national approach to AI research, development, and deployment. One issue raised by AI is liability. A common area where the issue of liability may arise is the self-driving car. Specifically, who is responsible when the self-driving car crashes? Ultimately, companies specialized in making artificial intelligence are going to be a key role in causing unemployment. As the AI gets implemented more into the workforce, people are going to lose their jobs, thus creating the question of who is responsible? Who is responsible for helping get those people back into the workforce and getting them compensation? Because this technology is so new, US law might have trouble addressing this issue. As stated by Iria Giuffrida, a professor at the William and Mary Law School and a deputy director for the Center of Legal Court and Technology, if an AI system makes a prediction or decision, especially without substantial human involvement or oversight, the issue will be by what standard we should determine liability when unacceptable harm occurs, but its causation cannot be determined. To illustrate, if a self-driving car was forced to choose between a cat on the right and a stroller holding a baby in front of the car, how would it choose? A human would almost certainly choose the cat, understanding that the stroller likely held a baby. However, the car, sensing an object, may hit the stroller. Who is liable? The car is not at fault because it is a machine. Historically, the driver has been at fault. However, the driver did not make the decision. Is the car manufacturer liable, or perhaps the company that manufactured the AI system? These are the issues that will need to be considered and figured out by the legal system. Another aspect of liability that will require consideration is AI-related job loss. It is expected that as more companies adopt AI, more people will lose their jobs. This raises the question of who bears responsibility for compensating these unemployed workers and helping them find new jobs. The government? The company that replaced them with AI? Does the AI system manufacturer bear any responsibility? The second issue raised by AI is bias in programming. Experts are finding that the programming that creates AI has bias embedded within. Nicole Turner-Lee, Paul Resnick, and Jeannie Barton, three leading professionals in technology at multiple institutions, explain one example of bias being found within Amazon and even risk automated assessments. Amazon, for example, began to use AI in the hiring process. The AI system scanned resumes and selected those who would be best to hire. However, it was found that when the AI was programmed, it used resumes mostly selecting white male applicants to determine hiring criteria. Thus, the system was biased towards selecting white men over people of color or females. In fact, it was concluded that the resulting algorithm looked for certain words rather than skill sets. Notably, the software penalized the word woman and downgraded resumes of women who had women's colleges. Another area where bias can be found is in AI-driven risk assessment. Nicole Turner-Lee and her colleagues explained that AI-driven sentencing recommendations resulted in people of color receiving higher bail and longer sentences. They concluded that this was due to the reliance on flawed information that reflects historical inequalities. This same concept of AI-driven decision-making based on flawed information is also observed in predictive policing, which is intended to predict what areas crime may occur. However, it has been formed that AI-driven policing results in people of color more likely to be discriminated against. Finally, As AI is implemented more into our society, it threatens to create a lack of privacy. This is seen in the areas of facial recognition, location tracking, and predictive policing. Maria Stefania Cataletta, an accomplished human rights lawyer, describes how AI is violating privacy rights. Ms. Cataletta states that these technologies actively monitor and track citizens, which constitutes a violation of individual privacy and could result in future discrimination based on religious beliefs, health conditions, or even political opinions. Facial recognition software is able to identify your face with extreme precision. For example, your iPhone can easily discriminate your face from that of another person. Many cities have installed cameras in public places and can use this same technology to identify individuals in a crowd. Similarly, your location is constantly being monitored through your smartphone or other cellular device. Sandy Smolin, an award-winning documentary director, explains that when the pieces are put together, we are more exposed than you might think. The result is that in this vast ocean of data, there's a frighteningly complete picture of us. Addressing these issues will require expanding the application of current laws and perhaps enacting new ones. For example, current laws hold drivers responsible for the action of their cars. Future laws will need to consider who has instructed the car to take these actions regarding unemployment, because AI has the potential to eliminate the need for employers in an entire industry. Future laws may be needed to give the companies that utilize AI, or maybe even AI manufacturers, at least some responsibility for retraining workers. Because such retraining requires money, new taxes such as a value-added tax in certain industries may be needed to pay for retraining. It could be used to pay for universal basic income for older workers who could not retrain. With regard to bias in programming, industry-based standards could be adopted to ensure that AI systems make appropriate decisions. Laws would likely be needed to enforce at least a minimum set of standards. Finally, laws will be needed to regulate the effect of AI on privacy. For example, laws may be needed to requiring citizens to be told that facial recognition, location tracking, or predictive policing are being used. Further, laws may be needed that require police to get an appropriate court order whenever they want to use this technology, similar to what is now required to search a home. These solutions will help safely regulate the implementation of AI into society, should be added to the American AI Initiative. Doing so would help address many of the ethical considerations raised by AI. It's apparent that AI raises many ethical issues such as liability, bias in programming, and lack of privacy. Consideration of these issues is an important part of the U.S. approach to the safe adoption of artificial intelligence in future technologies. Further, consideration of these issues will reduce the worry caused by AI and the potential it could have on society. Thank you.